summer tours are a bit different. However, these trips tend to get us just a little bit closer in terms of finding out what things are really like behind the scenes at a top-level football club. And so the last 5 days I have spent in Singapore have allowed me to get up close and personal with Emery's squad and given me a fascinating insight how things are shaping up ahead of the start of the new Premier League season. I've sat and watched training sessions, interviewed countless players, sat down with the head coach and spoken at length to various people behind the scenes. It's been an eye-opening experience to see how preparations are going for the Spaniards' first season in charge. Arsenal are a club starting a new era, and now I am back in London. I wanted to share my thoughts on what I witnessed having arriving in Singapore last Tuesday. Emery faces the media in Singapore. It's just over a year ago that I was with the squad in Australia, and it's quite remarkable to see how much the club has changed in the space of those 12 months. Of the coaching staff that were in Sydney, only Steve Bold and Selby Bow really remain, while in terms of the playing squad there has also been huge changes. Given just how much the club has changed in a short space of time, I was unsure as I headed to an open training session on my first morning in Singapore what I was going to see. I had heard from various sources before my trip that the changing room was in excellent shape, that spirit was high, and that the squad were all really buying into what Emery and his coaching staff had been doing at London Colney. And on that first morning at the team's training base at the Singapore American School, I could see that everything I had heard was correct. This was a squad that was united, that looked energized and was enjoying how they were being worked on the training pitch. Mesut Ozil had arrived in Singapore with the eyes of the world on him following the statement he had released revealing he would no longer be playing for Germany due to the treatment he had received before, during and after the World Cup. So it was no real surprise to learn that a number of German journalists had hastily been sent out to Singapore to cover the story. I spoke to one of them as we all stood and watched training. He was an investigative reporter at a top German publication who gave me his thoughts on the situation and how Ozil was being viewed back in his homeland. "I can't say there is just one view," he said, "but the view of most journalists is that it's a bit unfair what he has said. It was only hate, it was not self-reflecting. Me and colleagues believe there is a lack of self-reflection there. He became a pawn for a state president and he hasn't taken any responsibility for that at all. He doesn't even notice this." Mesut Ozil waves to some Arsenal fans during a training session in Singapore. Those may have been the views from Germany, but at Arsenal it was clear that the entire club was rallying around their new number 10. Soon after they arrived in Singapore, Chief Executive Ivan Gazidis stood up at a team barbecue and praised the stance Ozil had taken and talked at length about how Arsenal was a club that would always be a leading light when it came to diversity and inclusion. It was an impromptu speech, one no one knew was going to be happen, but it was one that was met with widespread applause from the squad who were sitting all around. Ozil was back with his family and everyone who had traveled out with the squad wanted him to know that. That was just one example of the togetherness that seems to be running through the club right now. And as I stood and watched the team training in front of me on that Wednesday morning, I could see countless more. Make no mistake about it, this was a hard training session, all played out in stifling humidity. The entire session was about pressing, it was about instilling a new intensity into the squad, something that has perhaps been lacking in recent years. With Emery's pitbull-like assistant coach Juan Carlos Carcedo at the heart of it, Arsenal's players were being worked incredibly hard, but they all seemed to love it. Later that day I stood with Aaron Ramsey at a cricket club during an event with fans, and as we spoke while getting some welcome shade from the sweltering heat thanks to a sight screen, the Wales international told me about how working with Emery had him excited for the new season. "He's very passionate," said Ramsey. "Tactically we've been doing a lot of work on the training pitch and I'm excited to get started under him. You always have to wait and see for the first few games to see if these new ideas are going to work out or if it's going to take a bit longer than expected. But all the players are looking forward to this new challenge and hopefully it will be another successful season. Whether that makes Ramsey sign a new contract remains to be seen. As I also came away from that interview with the distinct feeling that Arsenal are going to have to offer the midfield a very large financial package to keep him. But it was still very clear just how big an impact Emery's new philosophy had made on the squad. The next day we saw that philosophy in action when Arsenal took on Atletico Madrid in the first of their two International Champions Cup games. They may have even been beaten on penalties, but even at that early stage of pre-season you could see a difference to the way Arsenal are trying to play. The high press philosophy is clear. When the opposition have the ball in their own half, Arsenal's forwards are tasked with pressing as a group and trying to turn possession over as soon as possible. They did that against Atletico and they did it again in the second game against Paris Saint-Germain, which ended in a thumping 5-1 win. It's early stages and Arsenal remain a work in progress, something Emery admitted after that PSG match, but the signs are certainly positive. Especially when you consider the likes of Lucas Torreira, Granit Xhaka and Stefan Lichtsteiner have only just linked up with this squad. I lost count of the times Emery said the words "work hard" during the trip. During that first training session you constantly heard Arsenal's head coach and Carcedo bellowing the words "press, press, presses." Steve Bold is still around obviously and you often see him deep in conversation with Emery, with the Spaniard clearly keen to use the club legend as much as he can, but Carcedo is without doubt the man who runs things on the training pitch. He is Emery's mouthpiece, he is the man driving the players on and leading by example. Despite the squad all putting full intensity into the training sessions, there is no one out there as intense as Carcedo. There will be no easy sessions with him around. If Arsenal was considered a bit of holiday camp under Arsene Wenger, those days are long gone. One player told me during the trip that things were now completely different, that the freedom to just go out and express themselves that had been granted to them by Wenger was a thing of the past. It was now all about structure, about working hard and having a new philosophy drilled into them. It had been that way since day one of pre-season. Arsene Wenger was a respected man, rightly so, and he had a special relationship with a number of his players. But there is no doubt that many in the squad had grown to believe that a change in a new direction was needed. My understanding is that some of the squad have returned this summer and are now completely different characters around the dressing room. A spark has returned and there is a real belief that the work being done can lead to a successful season. Juan Carlos Carcedo gets his point across. Photo by Stuart McFarlane, Arsenal FC via Getty Images, and you certainly got that sense by spending time with players. This is a happy squad. The work may be hard, but they are all enjoying themselves. Everywhere you look you see smiling faces and you see players bonding. Matteo Guendouzi has only been at the club a couple of weeks, but the young Frenchman looks like he has been around for years. He has been welcomed in and he looks totally comfortable in his surroundings, as does Emile Smith-Rowe, and that showed by the manner of their performances on the pitch during the trip. So now I am back London, I'm left with a sense that Arsenal are in a very good shape ahead of the new Premier League season. What they can achieve remains to be seen and I'm by no means expecting a title assault. Emery needs to be given time to build things. He inherited a squad that was mentally weak. The embarrassing away record last season proved that. So it's going to take time for him to turn things round at the Emirates. But he is doing things the right way. It may be a small thing, but the fact that he and his coaching staff are communicating only in English shows the sort of message he is sending out. It would be easy for them to speak via interpreters, but they want to show the players that they are working just as hard as they are to improve. That they do not just want to take the easy way out. It's an admirable philosophy, one that sums up how the new-looking Arsenal is gradually taking shape. Keep up to date with the latest news, features and exclusives from Football London via the free Football London app for iPhone and Android. Available to download from the App Store and Google Play.